Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and I'm the Managing Director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. This video is just sort of a brief overview regarding leases in Thailand. Again, I'm an American attorney, I'm not a Thai attorney. Our Thai attorneys on staff handle the specifics and the formalities with respect to the registration and the drafting of Thai leases. And in some cases they may ask for input from someone like myself with respect to perhaps how to translate various things in Thai in a Thai lease over to an English language lease. But it should be, and that's something that should be sort of noted with respect to this. These are Thai leases, okay? So the operative language is going to tend to be Thai, even though one can go ahead and write into a given lease that the English language translation of a lease may prevail. At the end of the day, if the lease is ultimately going to be adjudicated in a Thai court, it's going to be a native Thai speaker reading Thai who is going to be adjudicating that lease. So keep that in mind. The reason to do this video is basically to provide some just overall information about leases, in Thailand, and about leases specifically in Thailand, and specifically from the context or the perspective of a foreign national looking to get a lease here in Thailand. In most instances, residential leasing is somewhat straightforward. One of the major Thai formalities with respect to leases is not only much like the statute of frauds in, say, the common law system. The Thai system requires that a lease pretty much be in writing. I mean, you can have oral agreements with respect to leasing and rental agreements and this type of thing, but from the standpoint of enforceability, it's pretty much advisable that the lease be in writing. So that's the first thing. The second thing is sort of something notable with respect to registration of Thai leases. Now, to be clear, the Thai statutory law pertaining to leases stipulates that a lease which is 3 years or less in duration does not have to be registered in order to be enforceable in Thailand. And that, to be clear, a lease which is of a 3-year duration or less is enforceable in Thailand, notwithstanding the fact that it may not be registered. And when I say registered on the shenote, which is the title of the land in question, and that registration needs to occur at the land department and will likely incur basically tax implications as a result of the lease and rental agreement. So, to be clear, if you're looking at doing a lease in Thailand and it's over a duration of 3 years, you need to go ahead and probably get with a legal advisor to ascertain the best way in which to go ahead and maintain long-term rights to a given premises, with specifically lease, long-term rights to a given premises, in order to ensure that all the formalities are maintained, so that if it ever does come to the point where an adjudication by a later court is necessary, the lessee the person leasing the property wants to be sure that all the formalities are met, so that there's not some deficiency in the lease from the standpoint of the drafting and the registration, which results in basically the lessee sort of losing some or all of their rights to that given premises. Again, this is sort of important. This is actually rather important from a foreigner's standpoint in Thailand, because under Thai law, basically no foreigner can own land in Thailand. So yes, you'll often hear about all of these so-called mechanisms for gaining a more permanent control over land, but at its core, the Thai law is very specific about the fact that land ownership in Thailand is pretty well restricted to Thai nationals. There are some exceptions, and we're not going to get into that in this video. This video is specifically about leases. Now, there's the 3-year rule with respect to enforceability, and then there's a 30-year rule. The general rule in virtually all cases regarding leases is that the lease is not going to be able to be for a duration of more than 30 years. Again, it's very advisable to talk to a Thai legal specialist, a legal professional with respect to these matters, as there may or may not be various ways in which to adhere to Thai law while obtaining the kind of benefits that one is seeking. But it's generally a good rule of thumb to make the assumption that it's not going to be very likely that you're going to be able to get a lease that you can enforce for longer than a 30-year period. Again, there are exceptions to some of these rules, and as myself not being a Thai attorney, I'm not going to get into speculation about those matters. I leave that to the members of our staff who specialize in those things. But again, this is just sort of a general overview. I sort of call it the 3 and 30 rule. If it's 3 years or less, you can have it in writing, and it doesn't have to be registered. Over 3 years, it needs to be registered, but it can't go over 30 years. So with respect to that, there are other issues with respect to subleases, which we're not going to get into in this video. But just a real brief overview is sort of, okay, if you're renting something for 3 years or less, you're okay with just having that in writing. If you want it for 3 years or more, it's probably advisable that you talk to a professional, and it's probably going to end up being very prudent to go ahead and get that matter registered on the title of the underlying property itself. And then if you're trying to get over 30 years, I definitely say it's advisable to talk to a Thai legal professional, because going over 30 years, you may want to maybe even look at some other options with respect to that.